Hello! In the previous video I showed you to set up a color managed workflow in DaVinci Resolve. In this video I'll show you to start monitoring in HDR using your C9 or CX series OLED. Here I've connected my computer running DaVinci Resolve to one of the TV's HDMI inputs via the DeckLink Mini Monitor 4K card. I've also set up a color managed project as shown in the previous video. If you just install the DeckLink card or connected an Ultra Studio device, you might need to first select it in the Preferences. To do this, go to Preferences, Video and Audio I/O, and select the DeckLink card or Ultra Studio device. Resolve now has to be restarted for it to be active. Now, to monitor in HDR, you must activate HDR mode on the TV, along with the Direct 2020 color space. For CX users, there are two ways of accomplishing this, with HDR Metadata over HDMI, and via the HDMI Signalling Override menu in the TV. As I said earlier, the C9 series OLEDs doesn't have this override feature and relies solely on HDR metadata to be sent over HDMI. So let's start with that option. Now, if you're using an I/O device, such as the DeckLink Mini Monitor 4K card, to activate HDR mode on the TV, there are two more settings in Resolve to go through. So let's open the color management settings. First off, you want to check this HDR mastering is for box and enter 1000 nits. This information will let the TV know which tone curve it's going to apply, which we'll set up during the calibration. To send HDR metadata and activate HDR mode on your TV, you will also have to go into the master settings and check Enable Metadata over HDMI. And that's it. To be able to activate HDR mode on your OLED, you'll also have to enable HDMI Ultra HD Deep Color for the input that you're using for monitoring. This setting can be found by going to the Picture Settings, Additional Settings, and HDMI Ultra HD Deep Color. Note that you only can activate this setting for the input that's currently active. Once activated, exit the settings menu. To verify that this works, you can at any time press up on the TV's remote and hit enter by clicking the middle wheel. Here we can see that the OLED is in the HDR mode, and also the Rec 2020 color space. If your TV isn't showing Rec 2020, try going back to the project settings. Change the output color space to something else, confirm, and then change it back to Rec 2020 again. I'm experiencing this happening a couple of times, where the Rec 2020 mode didn't get activated immediately. It's therefore imperative to double check that the TV is actually in the Rec 2020 color space. And as I said earlier, CX users can set this manually in the HDMI Input Signalling Override menu, which I'll talk about now. The HDMI Input Signalling Override menu is a brand new feature available with CX series OLEDs, and it allows you to manually get the TV into the desired color space, elect optical transfer function, meaning HDR mode, along with a few other settings. To access the hidden menu, go to Picture Settings, highlight the Picture Mode settings, and enter 1113111. You are now in the hidden HDMI Signalling Override menu. Here you can manually set an HDMI input to a specific color space, elect optical transfer function, along with ST2026 HDR10 metadata. This information is then used by the OLED to determine the processing which will be applied to the video feed. Now, with these settings, you no longer have to send HDR metadata over HDMI, which I also talked about in the video called Options for Monitoring Workflow. However, you don't have to use this menu and can leave all settings to auto if you're using a compatible DeckLink card or an Ultra Studio device, and instead wish to control these settings from DaVinci Resolve. To demonstrate how this menu works, let's start by setting the EOTF to ST2084 and activate HDR mode and the PQ curve. Now, when switching between color spaces, I found the behavior of the P3D65 option a bit strange. When going between Rec 709 and Rec 2020, the colors on the display changes, as they should. But when going to P3D65, which sits in between the two, it doesn't change at all, and the colors are the same as the last chosen setting. If I choose P3D65 and exit this menu, and press up on the remote to highlight the input and select it, there's no indication of P3D65 here. And this is the main reason why I don't recommend you to work directly in the P3D65 color space when using these OLEDs, but instead work in a Rec. 2020 container limited to P3D65. Now, if I go back to the HDMI Signalling Override menu, and instead choose Rec. 2020, it is possible to verify that this is in fact the active color space, as you can see here. To enable the 1000 nit custom HDR tone curve, which we'll be setting up during the calibration, you must let the OLED know that you're mastering for 1000 nits. The mastering peak setting allows you to manually change between 3 HDR tone curves. Here I'm going to set mastering peak to 1000 nits, to make sure that our custom tone curve is applied. Now, we don't need to worry about the rest of these settings, since they're really meant for delivery of HDR content, and we don't want the TV to make any changes that deviates from the PQ curve while grading. Now, as a bonus for CX users, there's a feature in DaVinci Resolve called Video Clean Feed, which I found to be great when I just want to try something out on my laptop, and quickly see how it looks in HDR. With the HDMI Signalling Override menu configured, the Video Clean Feed feature allows me to use a regular HDMI output on the computer, without an I/O device or any other equipment, to get a signal out to Resolve. After connecting an HDMI cable between the computer and the CX OLED, simply go to Workspace, Video Clean Feed, and select the display from the menu. Also, remember to double check that the EOTF and color space in the HDMI Signalling Override menu matches the project settings, and that the EOTF is set to ST2084 and the color space is set to Rec. 2020, both in that menu and in the project settings in Resolve as well. Now, it's not recommended to use this feature for critical color grading work, as the video feed from that signal might be less accurate than that of an I/O device. But I think it's a great option to have. For the rest of this course though, I'll be using the Decklink Mini-Monitor 4K card to output the video signal to the TV. In the next video, I'll show you how to calibrate and set up your C9 or CX series OLED. Now, if you're anxious to get started working in HDR right away, at least follow along during the first part of the next video, where I'll start by showing you how to configure the basic settings of your OLED.